Testing 1, 2, 3. This will be the October 17th, 2018 City Council regular meeting.
Yeah, I tried to come to the office, but there were so many people. There's Frank and the Donovan.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the City of Satellite Beach, October 17th, 2018, approximately 7 p.m. Please join Vice Mayor Montanaro for a prayer and a prayer and a pledge.
Lord, thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. Please help us to make good decisions for our community. Please be with all of our armed service members around the world, our first responders here locally, the people impacted by Hurricane Michael and the Panhandle. Help them through this, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen. If you'll join me in a pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3, very important day, swearing in of David Abernathy as the chief of the Satellite Beach Fire and Rescue Department. Courtney, please.
I told him not to stutter. I just wanted to introduce David to come up here, and Steve Abernathy is going to be swearing in. But I wanted to let everyone know that this was a very important decision of who to hire after the retirement of Don Hughes. And even though Abernathy has been with us for a long time, and actually I think he patrolled the fire department as a child, dreaming to be a fire. He's done such a great job for us, but we still wanted to make sure that, that he was that this is the right decision for us. And he's shown an enormous capacity for this position in the last month. He's definitely got the trust of his staff, and that was clear. And that was probably the most important aspect of this position for me as a manager, was to make sure that the staff trusted him and wanted him to be the chief, and that was clear. So we're very proud of him, and we know he's going to do a great job. And so with that, go ahead and swear in. You can
I guess you raise your right hand. I, David Abernathy, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America,
Constitution of the United States of America,
the State of Florida,
the
the City Code, and City
and
ordinances
city ordinances
of the City of Satellite Beach,
the City of Satellite Beach,
that I will well and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties of Fire Chief of the City of Satellite Beach.
the duties of Fire Chief of the City of Satellite Beach.
Congratulations.
Well, let me tell you, I'm humbled, I'm honored. It's been a very long time coming. I'm absolutely looking forward to working and doing the best job I can for the fire department of the City of Satellite Beach. I'm very, very excited for the challenge, and just what I expected for a speech. But thanks very much for encouraging me. But yeah, just very excited for the position, and like I just swore under oath that I promise I'll just do the best I possibly can for the city and the fire department. So. This is my son, newest member of Rockledge Fire Department. He's going to get the honor, I've given him the honor to unpin and pin me with a new badge, so we'll see what happens, how he does. Give him your rookie badge. Push hard. It's upside down. Everybody uses this nice. Just get used to it. This is what it is. Come on, Brogan. Get it done. Got it? Nice job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We do have some people that want to come up and speak, and I know that our police chief wanted to say a few words.
We just spent 4 days and days. Come with me.
It's funny you should mention that, because when I asked her if I could say a couple of words, she said, well, no roasting. Honestly, I just couldn't let this moment pass without talking about, not only do I think that's a great pick, and not only do I think you do a great job, and do I echo what she said about your relationship with the people that you work with, because I hear that as well, about the respect and the admiration that they have for you. So all that being said, you know, I know you're very excited, and I know so the firefighters are, but honestly, the people at the police department and me are very excited as well, because well, there's always that joking back and forth and that teasing between police and fire. It really is very, very important to have a good relationship. And I couldn't think of a better person that I work best with and that we work best with. And the thing that I really respect the most about you, Dave, is I can sit down and we can have a conversation and I can say something you like, dislike, or whatever, and you're going to listen to it, we'll discuss it, we'll come up with a solution that we can both agree with, and we'll both move forward. And it's always, always about the best interest of the city, always. And with that, you can't ask for a better person. And I'm just really looking forward to building that relationship, continuing it between police and fire, because it's just the best for the community. And I know that you're the person to carry that forward. Very, very important. That's what I want to say. Congratulations.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Chief, congratulations, and good luck. Thank you.
Yeah, I've dealt with myself by now.
Please. I'll do the recognition next.
Good seeing you, Jim, by the way.
You guys got to come up, too.
Jim, good seeing you.
Bye, Tatiana.
Bye, Tatiana.
Yeah, bye-bye. I'm like in La La Land right now.
It was probably 2002, 2003. I think that's about the last 2002, 2004. The whole room cleared out. The fire department shows up. Bye, Scott. See you later, Scott.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on now to the next agenda item. We're going to move the agenda items around. We're going to do agenda item 8 right now. Recognition and appreciation honoring the Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Board members for the exemplary service to the city. So, let me come down here. Thank you. And what I'd like to do is call everyone up, then I'll read it. Mark Reimer. Michael Chase. John First.
I'm Mike Joking.
Jeff, please. Ed, Denver? Thank you. Thank you, sir. Martha Kirby? Thank you. Michelle Launder? Thank you. Dominic? John Neely? Thank you. It's a pleasure. Mayor Shepherd? Over there. And I'll read on the certificate what it says. It says, and first off, the board's been in existence for close to 18 years, I have to say. And it's starting to wind down, the projects and so forth. So we wanted to make sure we recognized everybody before we close down the committee. So in recognition of dedicated and exemplary volunteer service on the Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Committee / Board, your efforts are valued by the City Council and the citizens of Satellite Beach, Florida, and awarded the 17th day of October 2018. Thank you guys very much for serving on it. It's been a long time on the board, and we appreciate your service. And please sign up for other board positions. I'd like to keep you around. Thank you very much.
It's usually self-service.
Everybody's wearing magenta or fuchsia tonight. There's 3 people there.
No switches. No switches. Okay.
We all have the...
Thank you, everyone. Move on to agenda item 4, citizens' comments. I'll take citizens of Satellite Beach first for non-agenda items. Non-agenda items.
My name is Linda Palmisano, and I live in Satellite Beach. So, starting in about March of this year, I began presenting information to the City of Melbourne in an effort to stop the water fluoridation program. The hydrofluorosilicic acid that they were adding was my main concern. And what started out as that has turned into just a general interest in water quality. And then, of course, we've had lately the meetings surrounding the possible cancer clusters in Satellite Beach. And I just want to say very quickly, I've been presenting information to the City of Melbourne. I spoke there last week. I sent both the City Manager, Mike McNeese, and the Director of Public Works and Utilities, Ralph Rigglesberg, lots of information, lots of research. And my concern now is towards the cancer aspect of it. And so what I've given you here, it's an older document. One thing I just want to say very quickly is that hydrofluorosilicic acid, they started using it around 1999. So until then, I believe they probably used sodium fluoride. So if we look at time and the people that we've had involved lately, those were graduates of Satellite High School in the years around 2003, 2004, 2002, that area. And those people could be more readily affected. That's not a good word, but because teenagers are still growing. So the effective toxins in the water probably affect someone who's still growing more than otherwise. But my bottom line is, they do, I think, a good job. There's two sources of water from the city of Melbourne. There's groundwater, which they run through reverse osmosis, and there's lake water, which they run through a system called ActiFlow. Both seem to be excellent ways to clean up the water. But then they start adding stuff to it. And they add, of course, chloramine, and they add bromine, and, of course, they add fluoride. And the product that they use, the hydrofluorosilicic acid, the second document is, and I apologize for the quality of the print, but I can't explain to you how it's made the way this man can. He worked for Occidental Chemical Corporation in North Florida for 21 years. He talks about the health effects that he and his employees had. He talks about how the hydrofluorosilicic acid actually made, with a possible contaminants in it. I have done research, and it can be contaminated with lead, arsenic, aluminum, and other things. The NSF that regulates the product, they don't test for PFAS chemicals or aluminum. I've contacted them to get a list of exactly what they test for and what they don't. They test less than 1% of the chemicals that are distributed. And I could go on and on. But the bottom line is, I have a lot of information I'd be willing to share with anyone. The final page, okay, so the documents I've given you is a letter from the EPA saying that they've never done any testing for the safety on humans of hydrofluorosilicic acid. The next set of things is a 4-page letter from the gentleman who worked at Occidental Chemical Company, and he describes how hydrofluorosilicic acid is created. And I think the final document, John Hargis had encouraged me to put all my thoughts and concerns in a 1-page document. I've done that. At the bottom is my email address. I have lots of research, and I have sent, I'd be glad to copy what I've sent to Melbourne over the last 2 weeks. And I went ahead and copied what I sent to Melbourne to our State Senator Debbie Mayfield, our State Representative Thad Altman, and our County Commissioner Kirk Smith.
Thank you very much. And Lenore, you have a copy? I pass it down to you. Okay. Thank you very much. For non-agenda items, still open for citizens.
They know that. It's been a long day. Ron Jagudis, resident of Satellite Beach, and I thank the previous person for bringing that up. I believe the health, safety, and welfare of all community citizens on the island or all in Brevard County should be eyed by all the municipalities here to ensure, again, their health, safety, and welfare. If we don't have health, safety, and welfare here, then what do we got? Nothing. So there should be an organization out there, and I don't want to create another bureaucratic mess, but there should be something going on here to ensure where municipalities meet and resolve this issue to ensure that everyone is healthy and safe. Because that's part of the whole show for people call it all kinds of names, but it is really the new Health Care Act that was indemnified several years ago. Now, I'm going to switch subjects here in order to maintain the health and safety and welfare of citizens here in this community. I think because of things going on here, the millage rate increase, borrowings of monies, and the rest of it, I think City Council should have staff prepare, and I'm going to put this in layman's terms rather than in a cryptic matter, a cash flow statement should be produced for City Council and the citizens on a minimum quarterly basis, if not on a monthly basis, so that we know the position that everyone is in here. We are at a point where everything is was supposedly turning the correct way, but with 4 years of increases in taxes based on the property values, and we are now borrowing things we talk about hurricane things, and we talk about needing to meet stormwater needs. There needs to be control over what is being done. Control meaning that everyone has the opportunity to see what is truly going on here. That's what I'm asking for, that a resolution be created or an ordinance be created so that we do see the money, where it's going exactly. We can do an income statement, we can do transferring monies, we can do all those nice things, and I understand that. But it's not fair to the citizens, it's not fair to you, council, it's not fair to staff, it's not fair to anybody. That should be monitored at minimum, quarterly, at minimum now because of the circumstances out there in the world, possibly monthly. And I appreciate that we got CAFRS finally. I appreciate that. But that has got to be looked at. And that crosses all paths of areas where things are being done, and I'm not going to allude to that because there are items on the agenda here. I'm not going to allude to that because it's not there at this point. It's not ripe for the calculations. But it is ripe to discuss that things are being done. Thank you, City Council.
Citizens' comments for citizens of Satellite Beach. The mic is still open.
Are we on YouTube tonight?
I don't.
Yeah, they are?
You will be
As always.
uploaded after the meetings.
So we're filming right now? Okay. Dale Abrams, CRA resident. Good evening, council, and Mr. Mayor. I just want to bring out the fact that a week from this Saturday, we have early voting starting, which is on the 27th, and it's going to go until Saturday, November 3rd. On Beachside, we have the Canova location, and you can go to votebrevard.com to find other locations within the county. Also, if you're interested in trying to understand the amendments, which are quite confusing, you can go to the jamesmadison.org, and they give you the pros and the cons of those particular amendments. And one of the things that you need to be concerned about is that sometimes when you vote no for an amendment, it could be a yes. So you really need to pay attention to that as far as that's concerned. And I don't know if all of you know that your sampled ballots will be having English and Spanish on it. And I think in 2020, we're going to see Spanish on the regular ballot because the rest of the counties are doing that. I think there was some litigation going on about it, but I don't think we had the time to do it here in this county, but I think it's coming as far as that's concerned. So I encourage everyone to get out and vote. This is an extremely important election, and please get out there and vote. If you don't do early voting and if you don't do your precinct, then do the mail-in. I know people have been receiving the mail-in ballots, but please get out there and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Podium still open for citizens. There are no more opened up for anybody who'd like to make a comment on non-agenda items. The mic's open. The mic's open.
Good evening, Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores. So the first thing I wanted to bring up was because of having identified lead as an issue in our environment, I started doing some research, and apparently lead on military bases, particularly base housing, is an issue. It has been for a while, been in even recent news. And of course, we have PUD-3 old base housing currently being torn down. And because the report for that does indicate lead was an issue with that development, I want to put it on record that I recommend you definitely look into doing an environmental assessment for lead, and as well the trench that has been indicated comes down from the old chemical dump from the base that would end at Satellite High. So that was the first thing I wanted to bring up. We don't want another situation like South Patrick Shores where you're on a dump and you find out years later you got health issues, and you don't want that to happen in your new development in your city. You don't want to mar your reputation. The second issue, so I have some good news. So DEP is coming in to investigate my area, so that's great. But in the consequence, you probably heard I dug up a mortar shell practice, and that in doing more research there, the munitions issue is not isolated to South Patrick Shores. It actually extends down to Melbourne. There's a map on the DEP site. I've posted it to my group. You're welcome to look that up. So part of the conversation with the DEP actually is that it's not so much the dump that's driving the investigation as perhaps the munitions. So then the next thing is that relates to the RAB, and congratulations to Courtney and you guys as environmental guy for being active in the community and joining that board. And I have also applied to join that board to represent South Patrick Shores, because we want to understand those chemicals both on the base and in South Patrick Shores that have gone through the groundwater and into the Banana River. And as Bob Bocock indicated, the PFAS issue will give us an idea of where those chemicals have gone. It will act like a tracer. So for your own canals down here, having that knowledge. So I commend the city for taking that action, and I'm looking into that. The next thing is, apparently in South Patrick Shores, we've had a deep well on the artesian side with lead, barium, PFAS in the deep. And so looking up, apparently with ALS, there's...
If you please, that beeper told me that your time was there, so if you would please, I'll give you time just to wrap it up.
Yeah, so lead is of a particular concern, not just in the military-based housing, but also throughout the area. And actually for ALS, I found a connection that a lot of ALS patients have very high lead levels, so that's something to be particularly concerned of.
Thank you very much. Mic still open for non-citizens and non-agenda items? Hearing none, thank you all for your comments. Close that portion. Moving on to agenda item 5, City Council comments. With council's permission, I'd like to just start. Last night there was an award banquet put on by the Melbourne Chamber, and it was to honor the local women on the rise. And we're very, very proud that the Collective Impact Award went to our city manager, Courtney Barker. She does an amazing job. There's like 80 women that was nominated for, and she came out shining. So thank you for your hard work and everything you do for us. I appreciate it very much, and I know the rest of the council does too. That's all I have. Mindy, you'd like to start?
Sure. On Monday, Courtney Barker and I, to probably address what a few of you people have mentioned out on your citizens' comments, we met with Bill Posey, and we discussed water quality issues, groundwater issues. It was a pretty good conversation because a lot of this needs to happen at the federal level and then trickle down to the state and to us, specifically with the PFAS and the military base right now not getting any funding to do what they need to do. So we requested that there be pressure put down to allow, Patrick to have enough money to clean up their mess. And also, their mess, I've said that, but clean up the mess. Mm-hmm. And also for us to really push for some studies, something I've been saying for a long time, having gone through this PFAS situation in our groundwater, not having any standards or any guidelines, we're not the first city to go through this, and we're most certainly not going to be the last. And to have to, it's very important to me that our government sets us up with the standard. So when somebody goes through this, they know what the next step is. They know if they're safe, if they're not. If it's above a level, then you take the next step, and they need to have a plan. And there are several chemicals out there that are emerging chemicals of concern, that it doesn't just incorporate the PFAS situation. There's a whole slew of them that we need to start addressing and looking at. Fluoride, for example. We also met with the water utility, and we've had some meetings with them off and on as well, talking about the drinking water standards. And, that's another thing that has to kind of come down from the federal and state level, where if they're told to take the fluoride out, they'll take it out. It's the way I understood it. So we're starting our battle there, and we're trickling down through the state and dealing with the county. And I do believe we're going to be testing for lead on are we doing lead in our tests for the groundwater? So we'll be able to test for that. So, yeah, and that was on my birthday. So I got to have a meeting with the congressman on my birthday. So I don't know if I'm happy or sad about that. I should have been drinking, wine. So anyway, that's all I have to say. So.
Dominic?
Along with Frank and actually the rest of the council, I was there last night too to watch Courtney get her award, and I can only echo Frank's comments. You do a wonderful job for us. Congratulations. I did want to just correct one thing that was said at the podium earlier about 4 years of tax increases. Our millage rate has gone down. This is the first year that our millage rate has gone up. So there have not been 4 years of tax increases. And based on what I see with our finance department, we are getting these reports quarterly now. You are coming to us with these figures on a quarterly basis. So what you're asking to be done is being done.
No.
I'm just
No,
saying what you.
Robert's rules, Mr. Mayor.
No, sir, you don't have it. This is council comment, sir. I'm not accepting your comment.
Point of order, Robert's rules.
Sorry, sir. Dominic, anything else to?
Nope.
Thank you. Mark?
Only thing I want to add to what everybody else has added, Courtney, is nice acceptance speech last night, too. That was wonderfully done for something you had planned on doing. I was impressed with that. That was clearly from your heart and very well received by the whole group. So, again, I'm echoing everybody else's comments. Nice job, lady.
Thank you.
I would just like to add last weekend, Dominic and my wife and I were out there with Ethan doing the cleanup at the beach, and I'm very happy to see all these years that it has such a crowd. And it's funny, I get there now, and I don't think I was there 5 minutes after 8, and I think they were already almost out of buckets and stuff to go clean up. That there was such a large group already there, people out there, and it's only from 8 to 10. So it's like if you want to get a bucket in the little picker thing, you got to get there early. But it was really great to see that. I found some interesting things: a boomerang, a football, Yeti cup, all kinds of stuff that was out there. But it was just really nice to see that so many people attend those to go out there and clean up our beaches, which is often, close to home for us being up there at Pelican.
And what Saturday or is that?
It's always the second Saturday of the month from 8 to 10.
Thank you. Any further council comments? Thank you, council. Thank you, Courtney. Moving on, city attorney report.
Thank you. I have two items. One is that I just want to announce that the lawsuit regarding the meeting with Mr. Bocock has been served on everybody. The city was served last Friday, and apparently all of the council members were served today. The other, and we'll proceed with filing an answer and coming up with strategy on how to proceed with it. The other item is John Stone and I were talking about some issue that came up, and it brought up a piece of property that's at 375 Lee Avenue that has fairly substantial lien on the property for code enforcement violations, and the property's in disrepair, and I believe John said nobody's lived there for probably 8-10 years, and nothing's really been done with the property, and we just talked about, options that were available, and one of them was to foreclose the lien. Basically, the city can foreclose it based on the amount of liens that it has. It'd be treated just like any other foreclosure, And if somebody wants to bid on it, the foreclosure sale, then we can talk about that before we get there. But the other idea was at least the city can take over the property and we can probably level or demo the house that's there and sell the property and at least get it back on the tax roll, so to speak, and it's no longer a blight in the neighborhood. So I'm looking for authority or approval to proceed with the foreclosure of the code enforcement lien.
I'll make a motion to proceed, to allow the attorney to proceed with whatever foreclosure filings need to be done.
Yeah, I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro. Second by Councilman Osmer.
And I have one other item. I talked to John either yesterday or today, I don't remember which day it was. He indicated that he spoke with the city manager and she concurred.
Further comment? I'm going to open up for public comment since we're...
I just have a quick question, just for curiosity, about how much do they owe us?
It's over $200,000.
Okay, yes, foreclosed.
And obviously, we didn't get here just
I know what
overnight.
Really bad shape.
Yeah.
Okay. And the owner has...
Basically abandoned the property.
Okay.
That, based on my conversation with John, it sounds like the owner's abandoned the property. He and his wife own other properties in South Brevard, but this one apparently he just pretty much abandoned.
Okay. At this time, open up for public comment on this item that we will vote on. There are no public comments? Back to...
Ron Jagutis, Satellite Beach. Is this specifically only open to this item?
Only this item.
Only to this item?
Correct.
So there's nothing else out there going on that needs to be brought to the attention of the citizens? If it is, then it will be brought, but only this item.
This item right here.
Thank you very much.
I'll let you have...
Thank you,
the floor.
Mr. Maker.
Thank you. On this item only.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm confused.
Okay. Any further public comment? Voting's open. Hearing none, back to council. Any council? Okay. Lenore?
Councilman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Jim, thank you, and I know you'll keep us informed. Is that?
That's it.
Thank you. Moving on, any other questions for the city attorney? Nope. Okay. Moving on, city manager's report. Courtney?
Thank you, Mayor. Not starting, but tomorrow we will have our monthly business meeting at Whiskey Beach Pub at 5 o'clock, and this is our effort to reach out to the business community. It's actually becoming pretty popular, so I encourage council to go. It's a great time to be able to network with our local businesses and discuss some of the issues that they have. Also at the Satellite Beach Police Athletic League is hosting the Friday food truck from 5 to 9 at the DRS Center. And at the same evening, the Sustainability Board is hosting another evening bike ride in the city at 7 p.m. And I think it's a movie night this Friday, right? So the movie that we'll be playing is Cars. And PAL held this great little workshop for the kids that they built cardboard cars, and I think they're having a contest, so it's really cute. It was pretty popular. We have the Founders Day on Saturday, November 3rd from 9 to 3, so please mark your calendars for that. And then we have the City of Satellite Beach Relay for Life team. We'll be holding the bingo fundraiser at Whiskey Beach Pub on Friday, November 9th. And team members will start selling game cards at 5 p.m. and the games will start at 5:30. And all the benefits will go to the American Cancer Society. I received a card from Julie and Mike Gammon thanking the fire department for years of help with their family, and that's included in your report. I also received a card from Catherine Reed thanking the fire department for the extra care she received. That's also in your packet. I wanted to also just go over the meeting with Congressman Posey. And echoing what Member Gibson said, we really were there to support the Department of Defense request that Patrick Air Force Base has made to get some funding for the monitoring of the PFAS and PFOA issue, and also look into the impact on the biology of the lagoon. So we're discussing the fact that the DOD has really prioritized all of their remediation funds for PFAS and PFOA to bases that are impacting drinking water. And since our base is not doing that, they're not getting any funding for this cleanup or even monitoring. So we made the case that we believe we should be included because we have an impaired water body that's right next to the base, and that's impacting, and because we have an impaired water body, that we should be looked at in a different way and possibly get some money for just at least monitoring and start at least with that. And so I think we were pretty well received in that request. And then also we talked about standards, and we also talked about some water standards, which brings us to the next discussion. We have one of our residents, whose son is a cancer survivor, is very interested in looking into the chlorate issue. So we did meet with the water department over at Melbourne and discuss that, and they are including that issue in their overall water evaluation of the plant. So that was a good success in that meeting, that they agreed to include that in their overall study, which they're getting ready to launch. And that's a requirement of water utilities every so many years, and I can't remember how many years they have to do it. But they have to hire, it's kind of like when we do an audit, we have to hire an independent auditor. They have to hire an independent group to come in and evaluate the whole system. And they included chlorates in this system for that. We also discussed the fluoride issue, and I'll get with you after the meeting and talk to you about that. I think that for the fluoride issue with the utility, they don't really have any care whether or not it's in the water or not. It's not an issue for them. So it's really a council decision, and we'll talk about that. I wanted to bring you up to date on the red tide issue. I think everybody goes out to the beach right now and they start coughing. The county is waiting on the test, but we all know it's there. If you just walk out there, you can breathe it and smell it, and it starts. I was coughing last night when we were at the event, walking from the car to the building. So we put a message on Facebook. We shared the press release from Brevard County. They're all coordinating together right now. We will be a staging area for fish cleanup at City Hall. So Keep Brevard Beautiful will be delivering supplies tomorrow for that, and that will only be launched if it's necessary. But they did call us. They want to use our City Hall as a way for people to come and get supplies to start cleaning up if that's necessary. Once we get the test back, we'll probably put out a health advisory that if you have a compromised immune system or if you have asthma and things like that, to please do not go to the beach, stay indoors, and so on. So that's forthcoming. I'm pretty sure it'll be test positive. Yep. And so with that, I just have one more action item to go over. The fire department would like to apply for a FEMA assistance grant, FEMA assistance to firefighters grant to purchase air packs and bunker gear. It is a 5% match for populations of fewer than 20,000 residents, and the matching funds can be drawn from the ALS support fund. Normally we would make this an agenda item, but of course they're rushing, so we put it in my report. But we're begging your forgiveness, but they do want to go ahead and apply for that grant. It would actually save us quite a bit of money in our CIP.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Breimer, second by Councilman Gibson. Discussion from
Do we have an idea what the dollar figure is?
I think what they're going to apply for, like the maximum they can, and the 5% match will be 5% of what they're going to be granted. So they don't know yet. So there's a range, but they have a budget in the ALS trust fund for the.
And it comes out of the trust fund.
That's correct.
Okay. Good. This time it's an action item. Open up for public comment.
Ron Jagutis, health and safety is important. I know 5% does help. Just out of curiosity, what is the cost of the total cost, excluding the 5% or the change that may happen based on the grant funding?
We're
the,
Total cost will be between $40,000 and $50,000.
so bunker gear it's in our budget, I believe, for $45,000, right? If I'm not mistaken.
So you're going to yield approximately anywhere from 5% and plus or minus whatever the number is,
Right.
but that is 40,000. And there are no other avenues out there to explore to get this.
We have explored other grants, but yes.
Not even grants, talking to the manufacturing, seeing what they would possibly work with you with.
I think what we're doing here is
We're trying
getting
to
a
buy
grant
bunker gear.
for 5%. Instead of 95 or 100% of it, we get a grant, and our match to the grant is 5%. And we have a trust fund that people have donated to, that's where the
Okay.
money is coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Public comment on this action item? Floor is still open. Hearing none, back to council. Any further council? Hearing none, Lenore?
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Councilman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, Courtney. Any further items?
I just wanted to thank you all for coming last night. It was a real honor for all of you to be there. It was really great, and I really appreciate it. And the mayor did wear a pink shirt, and I have a photograph of it.
Very proud.
And, well, Dominic wore a pink shirt, but that's not surprising. The mayor wearing a pink shirt was surprising.
And not flip-flops. He was wearing closed-toed
She had
shoes.
a pink dress on, too, it looked pretty,
Yeah.
pretty good on
Yeah.
her.
It was a great affair. It was very nice. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Agenda item 9, discuss, take action on DeSoto Park stormwater change order number 1. Alan?
I think it was change order number 2, actually.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But
Noted.
before you this evening, good evening, everybody. Before you this evening is a request for approval of change order number 2 to the DeSoto Stormwater Facility project. We had made some assumptions in the beginning when planning the project, which turned out to be not so accurate assumptions. So the pump and the well both need to be replaced, and we did some improvements to the system that we had planned to put in, so that we'll have a better project. And most of this will be paid for through savings in other portions of the project. And this would be eligible also for matching funds from the DEP grants.
I'll make a motion to approve the Massey Corporation change order number 2 for irrigation upgrades at DeSoto Stormwater Park.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Osmer. Further discussion from council? Alan, project looks like it's going pretty good there. Are you,
It's going well. I have the taskmaster out there, so he's keeping them on point, and everything looks good. I'm thinking maybe the middle of the next month it'll be substantially complete.
Cool.
And it's starting to fill?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's
I've been
full.
seeing.
And there are some small fish in there
Yeah,
already.
there
as well,
are
so-
fish, so.
We will be probably calling you, Mark, about the equipment we want to place out there for seniors, so we want to make sure that we get the right.
Thank you. Yeah, there's just numerous pieces of equipment out there that are available, and, you know, we want to get what someone like yourself would deem more appropriate for folks to use, that, you know, that is multi-generational, but that, you know, seniors would get most effect out of. Okay.
Because we have so many parks for children, you know, we wanted to kind of make it more of a senior attraction.
Yeah, and I sat in on a webinar Monday with AARP, and it was very enlightening, you know, what they're doing around the country. It's called an 8 to 80 program, and they're concentrating now on getting seniors out of their house and getting them active. And so this is a good step for us, in the right direction. And if it works out, maybe we can expand the program down to the sports park and things like that. We have some equipment there now, but, if it becomes popular, I think it'll be a great thing for the city.
And we're trying to develop the landscaping plan to include shade trees to shade the sidewalks and the exercise areas pretty well. So that's kind of what we're focusing on right now, is just nailing down that.
And also the irrigation system will do the ball field too?
Yes.
Is that where?
Yes. And the other thing that, about the well that's running the ball field now, the existing well that we were using, outside of the well that is by the pump that we basically have to dig a new one. The well that they're using for the ball field has had a couple problems in the not too historically, we've had some issues, and it's underneath the slab of the building, so, so I think that well will be going away soon. So when we do this well, it'll be for everything.
Mark?
If it's all right with council, Courtney, as well, and Alan, what I'll do is also kind of bring this as an agenda item to the Brevard Commission on Aging.
Okay.
Because I'm sure they would like to have some input on this, just from this point of saying, as a model community, this is what the Brevard Commission on Aging had some input on. Would that be all right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll contact them tomorrow.
Because quite frankly, we don't know what to purchase. We want to focus on that age bracket, but we don't, so any assistance in helping us get that.
These, the members of that, of which I'm one of them, are from all over Brevard County, so I think that'd be kind of a sentinel event if we could include them too.
Okay.
And do you know of any other facilities in Brevard County that have that?
No, not in Brevard. No.
We've seen a lot of other parks, throughout the nation that have focused on that. That's kind of how we got the idea. But we haven't. Finding the equipment's one thing as well. It's and they don't market it for that age bracket, so we have to figure out what's appropriate, and we don't know that.
Well, the other challenge for us is going to be finding the equipment and finding the equipment that's going to hold up to our elements. Yeah. Because what I'm looking at now is a lot of it is, powder coated aluminum or metal, and we've seen playgrounds go away pretty quickly here. So what I'd like to find is something that is made out of the recycled plastic that is also effective for, that we can use and it'll last a while.
Is there a timeline on this as far as how fast you guys?
We'd like to. We're starting to look for the equipment now. So
next 60 days, maybe somewhere in that range, or shorter.
If we could do it in 30 days,
all right, I'll get on it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further before I open up for public? Okay, at this time, open up agenda item 9 for public comment.
Ron Jagutis, Satellite Beach. Boy, this reminds me of when I was a kid in the wonderful city of Chicago, Mr. Mayor, that things like this were done, including chess tables. I'm going to quip at Alan a little bit, and please understand why. We're talking about equipment that will last a long time because of the elements here, but there are certain things that need to be addressed on the beach. I'm not taking away from this, but as we both know, there are some things on the beach. So I'm going to let that pass. What is the total? First of all, I want to address the issue of health and safety. Do we have a deep well there or a shallow well spraying? Secondly, if it is a deep well or shallow well, is everything going to be tested to ensure the public health and safety of seniors and children? Because we know we're going to have a mix of people. And I'm trying to figure out, It's contained in there, there is water in there. I'm trying to figure out the sources to where we have the fish all of a sudden appear. Was it stocked, or did they flow in from someplace? Or are there interconnections with the other, shall I call, reservoirs out there by the library and so forth? Thank you.
You want me to answer that?
You could answer the well one, yes.
The deep, it's gonna be a deep well. You know, deep wells are much more effective and they last longer and, water's cleaner. What I mean, it doesn't have the iron, you don't have the iron staining and things like that. But the fish get in there because there is some interconnects. You know, the system connects to the ponds at the library, and so fish will migrate.
Yeah, birds.
And birds, yeah, birds carry the fish and eggs and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Any further public comment?
It's a nice project.
It's
Bert's done a great job supervising over there.
Dale Abrams, CRA resident, and we're going to get a kayak launch. I can't wait for that. I'm so excited about it. I don't know what we're going to do when the manatees show up, but we'll figure that out. Just a little point here about exercise equipment for seniors. You might want to look into Port Charlotte or Cape Coral. I believe one of those communities have a park that have put that type of equipment in there. Found it on the internet. Do a Google search. And I'm sure there's other communities out there that have done this sort of thing, as far as that's concerned. The question that I have about the park, and I've been paying attention to it, and actually I know some people that have been taking lots of pictures of it, is the area where the manatees come in. It looks like that area has been reduced due to revetment and also additional soil that's been sloped down. And I know you've got some revetment going on there. Or is that just a perception?
I think it's a perception. Actually, we dug it out some, to make it a little deeper.
Okay.
So that the manatees get back and forth a little better. It does appear as though it shrunk because of the rocks that are there, the revetment that you're talking about. And that was done because, when the manatees are in there, you've got everybody and their sister in there wanting to see the manatees. And the banks were eroding, so this will prevent somebody from falling in when you have 100 manatees in the canal, because the manatees eat the grass along the bank, and there's no grass to hold the bank together. So,
Okay, the other question I have is, I know you all remember rain events that we've had in the past, not too long ago. If there's a rain event, will that water from the canal actually flow up over, or will the water from the retention pond flow into that? And I'm talking about a major rain event, like when we had with Fay, or we had one, what was it, last year or the year before, where we had a lot of flooding like out here. Could that possibly happen?
The way it's designed, the pond is designed for that very instance. On the southwest corner, there is a structure there that allows water, once it builds up, to out into the canal. So, yeah, if you want to come by my office, I have the plan. It's designed for a 10-day retention to hold the water for 10 days if it builds up, and for the settling of the nutrients. But in heavier events, that water will build up quickly, and once it does, it'll pop off. It's basically a pop off into that structure and out into the canal.
Is the podium still open?
Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores. So just as piece of trivia regarding a retention pond like that can help keep the clarity, keep the bacteria down, keep it smelling better, et cetera. My son has done a project with freshwater bryozoan. It's found locally in ponds, for example, some Smith Park up about 40 minutes north from here. And they're around green, look like a piece of gelatin slime, and they are really cool. They filter the water, they're filter feeders, they're a benthic organism, and they will keep your pond very clear. They'll keep it from cycling, and they'll keep the bacteria down, and it's something you might look into from...
It's a polymer?
No, it's actually called a moss animal. It's a colony of organisms. You can look it up, freshwater bryozoan.
Thank you. Voting still open? Hearing no further, back to council. Any further council comments? Lenore?
Councilman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, Staff Allen, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Moving on to agenda item 10, which is proposed ordinance 1160.
Thank you, Mayor. Rochelle
I'm gonna read it
Long.
first.
Oh, sorry.
Ordinance number 1160, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, amending Chapter 30 Satellite Beach City Code, amending Section 30-107 definitions by amending definitions for coastal construction control line, ocean bluff protection zone, principal structure, and adding definitions for coastal setback line, crest of dune, emergency, erosion adaptation, action area, EAA, imminent collapse, landward, lowest enclosed area, lowest floor, modification, NGVD, oceanfront lot, 100-year storm, rigid coastal and shore protection structure, sandbag, seaward structure, substantial damage, substantial improvement, vulnerable structure, amending sections 30-415 RM3 residential mixed-use district, 30-415.5 RM4 multifamily residential zoning district, and section 30-416 C commercial district to provide setback for lots east of A1A, amending section 30-510 accessory structures for internal consistency, deleting section 30-734 in its entirety, adding Division 4 to Article 7, Resource Protection, entitled Coastal Construction Control Line Standards and Criteria, and setting forth those standards, amending Section 30-423, Nonconformity, amending Section 30-205, Sub B, Sub 1, Powers and Duties of Board of Adjustment, establishing subject matters and conditions on which board may grant variances to the coastal construction control line setbacks, providing for severability, providing for repeal of inconsistent provisions, and providing an effective date. That's a reading, first reading of ordinance number 1160.
Thank you, Jim. Courtney?
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance is the implementation of ordinance 1159, which you have already adopted into the comprehensive plan. This basically is the LDR implementation of that. So I'm going to let Rochelle go through the ordinance and John, and we'll be able to answer your questions after they present it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and first of all, I just want to thank you for the recognition earlier. It was a pleasure to serve the city and my community, and appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
All of you, and congratulations to you. I'm going to take you back to 2014 when you adopted the EAAA, the Erosion Adaptation Action Area, into your comp plan. And policy 1.14.18 requires the city to increase the setback line for coastal properties. So all of this really started way back when. As Courtney mentioned, you adopted ordinance 1159. It implements the plan and that policy by instituting further within the EAA area of your comp plan a specific setback So ordinance 1160 now takes that and institutes it into your land development regulations. So what this does is implementing your goals, objectives, and policies that you have set forth over the last several years based on numerous studies that you all have been involved in and that the city has been involved in, dealing with sea level rise, coastal changes, climate change, and so forth. And if any of you saw the pictures of the Panhandle this week, it is pretty scary. And I think the issue of managed retreat is something that all coastal communities are going to have to deal with, and we are leading the way, I think. So we listened to a lot of comments. We've been dealing with both of these ordinances since about February or March of this year. Both of them have gone several times to your Planning Advisory Board and to you. There have been a lot of comments. There have been a lot of changes over the course of these months in response to that. Prior to the August Planning Advisory Board, in August, the PAB recommended unanimously, I might add, approval of the ordinance that's in front of you. After that meeting in August, Mr. Beadle and the attorney for one of the landowners east of A1A talked about clarifying and just making sure that what we understood and what we wrote actually meant what we said it meant. And so in paragraph 30-738D, we clarified that to offer further assurance to the landowners when they could rebuild and where. In juxtaposition, the county uses a 1986 line established by DEP as their line in the sand. That line is almost in the middle of A1A. Their coastal setback line is 25 feet landward of the 1981 line. What we're asking you to implement, and what you have already established in 1159, is to go 15 feet landward of the 1981 coastal community control line, which is what you have established as your coastal setback line. I know this gets a little confusing. So we have set up a series of requirements and stipulations where you can rebuild or you cannot rebuild. And in most instances, if there is substantial damage, which means beyond 50%, whether it's an erosion event or any other catastrophic event, you cannot rebuild when there is foundation damage. You must meet the code. If it's a vulnerable structure, you must meet the code. If it is less than substantial damage to your structure or foundation, whether it is erosion or other catastrophic events, you can modify, maintain, repair, or replace on the existing foundation. If there is damage to the foundation, and if in the opinion of the building official it is substantial damage, or it is something that cannot be repaired, then the portion that is seaward of the coastal setback line must be removed and replaced per the setbacks, whether it's from erosion or any catastrophic event. Any new or redevelopment project must be 15 feet landward of the 1981 coastal construction control line. The principal structure or an accessory structure greater than 150 square feet must be 15 feet landward of the 1981 CCCL. Accessory structures that are less than 150 square feet may be allowed to go within 10 feet landward of the 1981 CCCL. We modified, before going to P&Z, the variance requirements, and that is, if there is an erosion event, you can seek a variance to put your foundation back where it was. However, after that, you cannot seek another variance when it is due to erosion. If it's all other catastrophic events, then there's no limitation on how many times you can seek a variance. When you get a variance, you would be allowed to go no further than 5 feet landward of the CCCL. We are also looking at, and if you looked at the pictures of the devastation, you probably noticed that if there was a home or a structure left standing, it was on stilts. And so, I mean, I think there is really substantial evidence to show that stilting is one way to protect our investments. So we came in with a requirement that the first habitable floor would have to be 10 feet, but there was a lot of consternation about that, so we, and the Planning Advisory Board decided that the first habitable floor would be 3 feet above the BFE as a way to start the progression. If somebody wants to go higher, they can go higher, but the mandate will start at 3.
Can you tell me what the BFE is? That
Oh,
base
I'm sorry,
flood?
base flood elevation.
Okay.
Yes, I apologize. However,
1% chance of flooding.
however, if you are awarded a variance, you must build your first floor at 10 feet above the base flood elevation. And that is because you're going closer to the CCCL, you're putting everything at a greater risk, and so you must go up. And that's kind of a fair trade. We have a requirement in the code, and I'm going to cut this off real quickly. We do have a requirement in the code that requires a garage, and we're looking at eliminating that for a lot of sustainability reasons. So in this juncture, we have separated for single-family and duplex homes on the east side. We're saying that, yes, you still have to have a garage, but it can be detached, and we've got some requirements for it. So it doesn't have to be part of your home, so you can have some flexibility architecturally with what you do. I think the ordinance is fairly clear on what can be done. If there's anything in particular that you have a question about, we looked at all kinds of different codes. We looked at the county's code. We had numerous conversations with them. The county was very helpful. They came to the Planning Advisory Board. But at this point in time, this is consistent with your comp plan. It's compatible with your goals, objectives, and policies, and your strategic plans, and all of your environmental and sustainability plans. The staff recommends approval. Your PAB recommends approval. For what it's worth, I recommend approval. It's a first step at managed retreat, and that's I know it's a huge step, but it's probably irresponsible as a city to continue to issue building permits where vulnerabilities are so high. And this is kind of the first baby steps that we can take as a community to protect not only public but private investments. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Michelle, thank you very much. I know this was long in coming, a lot of meetings. I sat in on a lot of the P&Z or planning board meetings. So if I look at where we're at, if we do nothing, it's almost worse off than if we do something, because there is no way to do variances at the present time, and you would have to come back farther. The county if I'm not mistaken, is 25 feet. And I don't think they've ever issued a variance, is that correct?
They've issued one at Sebastian Beach Inn.
Okay.
And that's like since 1986, I think,
Okay.
and that's what Darcy said, and
Yeah.
I misunderstood
I
her.
thought that they actually issued variances, but actually a lot of the development had been built that doesn't meet that code, but was built before the ordinance was passed.
And so I look at this, going through and listening to the citizens and trying to figure something that's a good balance. And when I look at this, it is, because it gives you the ability to have a variance in there. And we're doing 15 feet, which is, I think, wise. I think there's a lot of good things on this because everybody put their mind to it and did it. It's happening, and you're so right. If you look at the aerial photos from the Panhandle, there's very glaring that the units that are still standing are new, and they're built to today's codes and are on stilts. I was in the Keys, the Cujo, where the storm hit 2 weeks ago, and it's amazing, the new construction. You would have no idea there was a storm there. And you go 3 blocks away to trailer parks or developments that were, I call pre-70s and the 60s homes, and, they're mowing them down. And if you build to the standards, they're there. We keep getting these warnings from the storms and so forth, and I think we just got to change the way we do things, and I think it's a start that gives the homeowner the ability to still use the property.
Mr. Mayor, one thing that I really neglected to say to you and the council, and the benefit of the public, is that we have expanded the building envelope. I know that I've said this a lot, so I apologize for not saying it this evening. In pushing back from the 1981 CCCL, we eliminated the front setbacks and the side setbacks. So the front, you can go to within 5 feet. So it's a 25-foot setback in the front now. So what we're doing is we're eliminating 20 feet in the front and only requiring 15 in the land adjacent to the CCCL. It's not always in the back, so we can't see.
So we added 5 feet to the building footprint.
Right.
And then we
And
took out the side requirements.
Right, so the sides just
Give
have to
them more
meet the
flexibility.
breezeway. So you have a bigger envelope in which to replace. And secondly, you could not build, the code currently says if you've got a lot that's smaller, if you're left with a lot that's smaller, you're stuck. And we eliminated that to say, not only can you build on a lot that's smaller, if that's your remainder, but you don't have to go for a variance for that. So there's a lot of aids in here.
We wanted them to have the flexibility of moving the structure around on the property to make it, to fit it better and avoid the coast, basically, to keep it as far away from the dunes as possible.
Council comments?
I have questions. Do you want to go first? I have several, so if you have.
Regarding the garage aspect, being off-site more or less, or not underneath the building, wave comes in, takes out that garage, that garage is going to end up against somebody else's property right behind and that sort of thing, which is going to create more resistance for that property as that garage bangs up against their house. Am I right on the engineering side? The garage has got to go up against something behind it and keep on going? I guess what I'm trying to say is if the water's going to flow through, let it flow through, but the more stuff that it's got to push forward, the more, you see where I'm going, John?
It has to be breakaway walls. It has to meet FEMA requirements for breakaway walls. So even if it was constructed under the structure, those would have to be breakaway walls as well.
Yeah, but I guess my point, Rochelle, is that breakaway stuff's got to go someplace. It's got to run up against something else. And my question is, do we really need those garages? I mean, can it be an optional thing? Does it have to be a mandatory thing, or we're just throwing it out there?
No, we're hoping that it can be eliminated.
Okay.
But there's other sections in the code that require them, and so we were just trying to take the bite of the elephant here.
Okay.
But we're talking about, that's kind of next, those things are next.
Okay.
Within the code to eliminate that.
If council wants to wants us to do that, which we would recommend, what we were doing was we were trying not to address so many issues in one ordinance.
Right.
So if that's something that you all want us to look at, we would recommend looking at it. Because I agree, we all agree with you. But we just didn't want to, make so many changes in one,
Right now, our garages are defined as a fully enclosed structure.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that we need to tweak and allow for an open type of structure where you don't have to do the breakaway walls.
Okay.
That's all I got, thanks.
Mindy?
Okay, so my first question, when we talk about substantial damage, we're talking 50%. So it's 50% of the assessed value or the estimated value? What value are we going off of? And what are we using for what the damage is? The estimates from the person's home, like whatever they're getting into their insurance company? Or how do we calculate that? Because to me, that's a really kind of important.
Market value.
Yeah,
It's market value, okay.
And one of the things that I require in this kind of circumstances is they bring us proposals.
Okay.
I mean, bona fide estimates of repairs, and that's where we gauge that 50%. And basically, those are guidelines that are in FEMA documents now
Okay.
that we have to enforce.
Okay. And so my next one is, and I was just confused on this, so you guys can just clarify it for me. Was I understanding it that if there was any slab damage at all due to an event, they have to cut it out past the coastal construction line, behind it, whatever goes past that, or is that only if that falls within the 50% of damage? Is that
If there
confused?
is substantial damage,
So within that substantial
It is,
damage. So if
yes.
like a quarter, or not a quarter, let's say 25% of the slab was damaged, they can rebuild
correct.
in their normal footprint?
Repair it.
Correct.
Or
They can
repair
modify
it.
repair.
Okay.
Yes.
And, the premise is, we don't really have accretion here. So if they've been impacted by erosion once, they are more likely going to be impacted by it again. I mean, there's some temporary things that you can do to
Right.
shore it up, but it is going to happen, it's not going to your door.
Right. Okay. So the parking we covered, because that was my other question. We're kind of, if somebody has a small structure, we want them to stilt it, but yet we're going to ask them to put a garage somewhere else, and then there's not going to be enough room. There's several properties they're not going to have.
I apologize. They don't have to put the garage detached. They can have it as part of their main structure. It's an option.
Okay.
It's an option.
All right. And then but you said, so for that BFE line, so if they want to redevelop and move behind the line, they can go only to 3 feet. But if they get a variance and rebuild on their original footprint, if they're variance, they have to go to 10. Was that what you said? And did I understand that right as well? So they would have to stilt it, basically. We're looking for everyone to stilt.
Yes, if you are going to, if you're awarded a variance and to rebuild a completely different structure, to go 5 feet from the 5 feet landward of the CCCL, then you must go 10 feet. You must stilt it.
Okay. So in the process of awarding a variance, for me personally, having grown up here, I would like for because as you said, like county, one variance to one, I think that we should, it's my opinion, that we should be very considerate of the people that live here for homes particularly. Okay, maybe not condos or something like that, but even then. But for me personally, I feel that it's important that we consider that some of these people, this is their life home, or this is someplace that they need to be able to rebuild, and there are definitely some lots that are going to be affected, and I feel like that would be very important that we make sure that they can stay on their property as long as possible. So that's just what's important to me. So, okay, I'm done.
And it was important to us, and that's why we made sure that there were several grandfathering clauses.
Okay.
And that there were variance provisions.
Okay.
Further questions?
Yes, I have some. On page 3, it says, such modeling in the imminent collapse, such modeling must be calibrated on the site conditions and performed by a professional engineer licensed with the state. So, John, is that you determining that you notice erosion, and before you're going to do anything, you're going to require an engineered assessment? and that would be the homeowner's expense.
Yes, and this language, I believe, comes from the county grant process.
Okay.
I need to find where you were reading from, if you don't mind.
Page 3,
17.
under imminent collapse, where it's underlined up
Correct.
at the top.
Correct.
The last sentence, such modeling.
Yes.
So that would be John determining that an engineer needs to assess.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
And-
And I believe that was taken from the county's language, which is actually FEMA language.
Okay. I talked with John this morning about some of the requirements for plantings in the setbacks, because it stipulates plants of 4 feet in height. And when you're planting on the seaward side, if you're putting in grasses or, sea oats, they're not 4 feet. So John's going to work on addressing some of that language so that we can make sure that we're not eliminating those.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the other, I didn't see anything here on dune crossovers. Is that in a separate section somewhere else so those are in their own separate little entity if somebody wants to do those? Okay. The, on page 9 of 17, under 9, under D, if you come down in the middle of the page, D, when this passes, I guess that language from September would change to whatever the...
Correct, when it comes back to you for a second reading.
All right, and then the last thing I wanted to say was, I paid attention to all of the stuff that was going on through the storm. And, while Michael directly impacted Mexico Beach, there were still 120-mile-an-hour winds around the outside of that storm. And if you look at St. George Island, off the coast of Apalachicola, and you look at the damage in Apalachicola, and you look at 98 and the damage that was done there, but I saw pictures of St. George Island where everything is up, and they had some roof damage, but all of those structures were still there. So that tells me that we're moving in the right direction. And, as much as I really want to be able to help and accommodate people, I think our main message needs to be, you need to be going up, because if we get one storm that's going to come in and impact you, there's going to be another one behind it. They're not going to stop. They're just going to continue to get worse as time goes on. And I think whatever we can do to get people up higher than 3 feet off ground level is going to work to our advantage, because it's pretty obvious. And I think I sent you a link. I sent you an email with a link to a house in Mexico Beach that they called the Sand Castle. And this house was built to above standards, and it's still there.
That's a poured concrete house.
Yeah, I mean, it was built to sustain 250-mile-an-hour winds, and there wasn't anything that was missing from that house but the lattice that was underneath the house. So I'm not, breakaway walls are great, but I'm kind of with Mark too. They go somewhere. So if you're behind the breakaway walls, you're getting all that stuff pushed at you, so.
Yeah, I think if you go to any area that has been hit by a major hurricane and look at their building codes today, whether it's Charleston, South Carolina, the coast, you look at the Keys, look at Louisiana, they definitely forced them, the storm did, to wake up and become more sustainable practice in their building. It happened when Andrew hit down there, the codes totally changed. So I think it's good, because I've looked at those pictures. I have friends that live there, and that's what stood. So I think we got to get better as conditions and storms get worse.
And I just want to make sure that we're emphasizing that the city is in no way reducing the building envelope of these properties, of any of these properties. We're just shifting it.
Right.
So if there's an issue with compliance, it's because they can't comply today.
Right. Okay, any further comment from council? Do I have any motion to start, and then I'll open up for public?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 1160 on first reading.
I'll second, but Dom, just regarding your motion, is that, are we giving Courtney and John and Rochelle the option of looking at the breakaway stuff? How are we?
I think that'll come back to us in the second reading.
Okay, all right, as long as that's in your,
Take that,
as long as
yeah.
that's understood.
I got a motion by...
Because we have the plant stuff that's going to...
Right, and the plant stuff.
Okay, that's fine.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro. Second. Second by Councilman Breimer. At this time, open up for public, comment on agenda item 10, ordinance 1160.
Ron Jagutis, one last time. I could feel you're going to pass this. I could state all kinds of comments here, and I know things were said here, but I'm very happy, everyone listen, that the city of Mexico Beach is going to rebuild. They are not going to stop. They are planning to rebuild and make it the right way. And then I want to speak to the audience, whoever does this, and to the council, and I'm going to refrain from any demonstrative speeches right now. Nowhere it has been brought up that 1159 is under protest. Ordinance 1159 is under protest. There are requests for documents. There's all kinds of information that are requested, and I find it interesting that tonight we're passing 1160. Not me, the council is, and staff is recommending it. And I believe it was stated in the past that why are we burning the taxpayers' money through the city's attorney, and then citizens have to hire an attorney to represent them. This is no longer Mayberry. And you can talk all the accolades you want right now about this is a good thing, but I hear here more retreat, more retreat, more retreat, even if I build 10 feet. 10 feet above. Now, those of us who live on the beach see everything. We live it daily. And we additionally know what we're going to have to do here eventually. We know that. And then to tell me tonight, well, we got a garage issue. Okay, we got a garage issue. Let me explain that to you. So, I guess I got to keep another car in storage and have Uber come up and pick me up while I go to US 1 and get my car. And one of our cars is in storage for the saltwater reasons. And I'm being told that? And if we have a catastrophic storm like what's going to hit that area, it's going down the road all the way through. And nobody talks beyond the beaches of what has happened in Mariana, all the farms that have been destroyed. And what about the 50-year agreement with the Corps of Engineers? What about that? We're going to have sand put in. And I talked to the county, and I'm going to get a statement from the county in regards to...
We're not talking about sand here, we're talking about the sand.
We are talking about sand.
No, sir, we're not.
Yes, we are, sir.
Sir, I'm going to stop you because 1160 is not about sand, and the thing is right there beeping. So
And you want me to put a wooden fence up that's going
I want you to wrap up your time at the podium. The
I
buzzer
will.
just went off, and I'll give you
I will.
10 seconds.
All I think is, I think the citizens here, and one of the council persons brought it up, I think the Santa Clara ruling in the city of Cocoa needs to be read to this city and ensure that us citizens are protected in that area. Thank you.
Sir. Appreciate it very much. Podium's still open.
And this is discrimination.
Gail Abrams, I live on the ocean. This is discriminatory, and I think that we need to consider creating an entity of the property, the single-family homes from DeSoto South, like they did up in Cocoa, when they tried to take away land, and there was a big fiasco about that. Besides that, Mr. Breimer, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a garage. I understand your point of view, but you know what, Mr. Breimer? My neighbor has got a $90,000 BMW. Do you think he's going to want to put it underneath a stilt house and not be protected? Okay? If we have a storm, and I've been paying attention to this storm, I've been going all over the internet, all right? And if Mr. Mayor has somebody that's up there that he knows, I would love to be able to help those people if they need something. If we have a storm like Michael, the water's coming to here. We're all done. Your house is gone. Mr. Mayor, your house might still be there. Your house is going to go because you're close to A1A. If you look at what occurred, okay, as far as that's concerned, the feeder bands were 185 miles out there. I mean, I was ready for this storm. We had 3 weeks of waves in this community that were unbelievable, and a lot of that was due to Leslie. She was out there for a while, and then we got some of this stuff from Michael. So the point is, if we do get a storm like this, we're toast, okay? It's going to affect this community as far as that's concerned. And remember, please look at the topography of Mexico Beach versus us. I am at 14 elevation. When we have low tide, I can look out my window, and when somebody's walking at low tide at the water's edge, all I can see is their head because of how it comes up, all right? And then I'm going to say we've got litigation going on with 1159, and I just don't understand how you're pushing through this 1160, because they are interconnected. So are we going to be looking at Bert Harris down the road?
Thank you. Podium still open for citizens.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm Bridget Gersh. I'm an oceanfront homeowner. In fact, I am the homeowner that Ms. Labandalis referred to. We're usually represented by Cliff Roberger. He got called away, so I'm here today. Anyhow, I wanted to thank the team here. I mean, they've just done a lot of work. I understand what you're trying to accomplish. I understand where you're going. The PAB has voted to approve this, to move this forward. But what they have not seen is this draft. They have not seen the exact language. So I have 4 points I want to bring up. This is about dotting the i's, crossing the t's. You know, did you capture it right? Not that you end up later on going like, oh, I forgot the garage, or I forgot something. So I have 4 points. And they're not a surprise. I know that Cliff emailed both Jim Beadle and Courtney. I forwarded that email to John. We spoke today. I've also sent my other comments, Jim. So let me just, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read what Cliff wrote, just real quickly. So he has 2 points, and then there's 2 other points. So with regard to the revised grandfathering language in the newly created section 30-738, I believe there needs to be some clarification between other disaster in subsection DI and other casualty in subsection DII. If the idea, as I understood it to be at the August 20th PAB meeting, was that the city was agreeable to complete rebuild in a non-erosion or non-storm related event where there is substantial damage, then I think the phase other disaster could be, or perhaps should be, removed from subsection DI, and that subsection DII would then cover all other casualties regardless of extent of damage. For example, total loss in a fire. I think he used that example, actually. In that clarification, if that clarification is not made, I think it could be argued that a structure can only be repaired if it sustains less than substantial damage because of the broad use of the term other disaster in subsection DI. That's not attorney wrote that. Second point. With regard to variances pursuant to the newly created section 30-379, the introductory paragraph to the new section now provides The Board of Adjustment may consider granting a variance if a CCCL setback on lands used for single-family townhome or duplex purposes on lots located east of A1A when damaged by catastrophic events such as hurricane, storm surge, sea level rise, or other disaster except erosion. For erosion events, the provisions of Section 30-739F apply. The following provisions and consideration shall apply. The highlighted and underlined language introduces a required limitation for variance applications damaged by catastrophic events that did not exist in the draft review and recommendation for approval by PAB to the City Council. At no time did the PAB's consideration of the draft proposed ordinance did city staff advise, will you indulge me further, Mr. Mayor? I'm sorry. At no time during the PAB's consideration of the draft proposed ordinance did city staff advise the PAB that the application for a variance to the proposed CCCL setback would be conditioned upon catastrophic damage. Nor do my clients believe that was the intent of the PAB in recommending that owners should be allowed to apply for a variance back to within 5 feet of CCCL if desired by the owner and the code criteria was met. As such, my clients object to the inclusion of the restrictive language as highlighted above and ask that the language either be removed or that the draft ordinance be sent back to the PAB for additional consideration. So if you look at the 820 version of the PAB or of this language and then this language, it was just added, catastrophic damage. So to your point earlier, it's really restricting homeowners from if you have an issue that, now you can't, if you have to have a catastrophic event happen in order to even ask for a variance. And the other two are real short, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, I went over here. On page 12 of 17, section 30-738L adds a new requirement in regard to fences. And as a point, if this section stays, Mr. Beadle, it really should be listed on the very first paragraph because it's an addition, it's new language. Very first paragraph of the ordinance where everything is listed, and it's not there right now. All fences on lots bisected or adjacent to the CCCL shall only be allowed to use wood or aluminum products. No plastic or PVC materials will be allowed. Owners shall meet the Florida DEP sand fencing guidelines for opacity. This language is in direct conflict with 30-516D currently in place, which states all fences located east of Highway A1A should be constructed of plastic-coated chain link, UVC, PVC, or aluminum. A fence shall have no more than 30% opacity of any vertical surface area running foot constructed of opaque materials. So this DEP guideline, it says that we now have to comply with, it's a 60-40 opacity ratio. So it's direct conflict, and I think that it's either one, it should be one or the other. I personally recommend this whole section be deleted because 30-516 covers everything. So I think this paragraph should just be deleted. Then you don't have to add it to the first paragraph either. On page 13 of 17, this is my last item, Mr. Mayor. Section 30-739E states that if a variance to build less than 15 feet from the CCCL is granted, that the lowest floor shall be built to a minimum of 10 feet above the BFE. This is a huge jump from the plus 3, and I think Ms. Gibson mentioned this earlier. That's a similar concern. I personally believe that this jumping from plus 3 requirement to plus 10, just if you've asked for a variance, is a huge change. I think that is very restrictive. I believe that should be something that should be left up to the building official. If you're asking, for example, for a 1-foot variance because your building nicks into the CCCL, I mean, to make that drastic of a change, I really think you should allow yourself flexibility in that. And it could be recommended, but I think the building official should be the one who should say, yep, it's got to be 10 feet, or, yeah, we can let it be something different if it's harmonious to the building or to the land or to the lot. So those are the 4 points I would really like to ask for your consideration as you're looking to approve this. I think they're small amendments that meet the spirit of what the PAB said. I've listened to the audio tapes. I've conferred with Mr. Eppinger today several times, and he wrote this email. So I ask for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Podium still open? Citizens, right now, make sure. Okay, hearing none, I'll take a couple comments. Since this is a city ordinance.
Sandra Sullivan of South Patrick Shores. So the point that Don brought up about the sand is on page 1217,
Okay?
just FYI. So since there's another agreement in place, it would seem to conflict with it. My husband is on Task Force 1 Search and Rescue Team. He's up in Panama City. And that house that you were referring to, the Castle House, is actually in Panama City. And that house was built to very high building standards, and I respectfully disagree with the direction you're going in this document. I think you would be better off to approach this from the building code angle. If you look in the Keys and you look up in the Panhandle in areas that they're looking at code, that would be the approach I would take and go incrementalism over time, and especially because some people have been here a long time with their properties. I would like to ask a specific question. Oceana is a new development, it's not opened yet. Is it conforming to the offsets that you're talking about in this document?
No, it was done before these ordinances were.
And yet this document is obviously something that's been in the works and talked about, but wasn't even considered with those developers.
Oh, that
Thank
was
you,
a
thank
long
you.
time ago. That development was
Yes,
done a long time ago.
but it's not even open yet, you know.
Thank you.
So also, I wanted to say, yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Podium still open? You have, podium is open, podium's closed. Okay, bring it back to council. Jim, this is a first reading, correct? So it's going to take two readings.
Hang on, hold on a second.
Okay.
I have some questions for him. I'm sorry, don't
Can
kill
the
me.
public hear this? Can we
Yeah.
have some
Yeah, you
transparency?
can't.
Oh, okay, fine. I'm,
Please, sit down, thank you, please. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm expressing my concerns about this and trying to get some legal information on, I don't know, what the effects this is going to be in the future, and that's all. And how
This
to,
is a first reading.
right,
So between the first and second readings, this could be incorporated, or Jim, you'll take a look at it with those?
The issues about the garage, I don't think it would be appropriate to make a modification between this reading and the next reading. And I think the staff's basic position is that should be an issue independent of this ordinance.
Okay.
Which I think would
And then we
be
can work on
acceptable
that. Thank you.
because my concern would be whether that's a substantial change to this ordinance or not,
Okay.
between first reading and second reading.
So
The
Jim,
issues-
I need to withdraw my consideration of that as part of this.
Part of the motion.
I will withdraw that, Dom.
The issue about the matters raised by Mr. Ruppinger and Ms. Gersh, those can move forward between the two readings. Basically, the two issues that Mr. Ruppinger raised had to do with massaging the language as opposed to actually changing what's actually there. The issue regarding the fence that was just brought up and the other issue regarding the variance, I guess I need to understand what the issue is. I think I understand the second issue. The issue regarding the fences, I don't, obviously, off the top of my head, know what the FEMA fence regulations are, or DEP's fence regulations are. So, but all of those items could be addressed between first and second reading.
Thank you very much. Further questions?
I just want to make very sure that whatever language comes back on this, when we're talking about the variances, that I have strong concerns that no variances will ever be allowed. And I just want to make sure that we really do consider, like these, they want to be able to.
Well, let me make one statement. There is an overarching issue regarding this type of development, and the concern about whether or not a variance will ever be granted, I believe, is not a conceptual issue per se. I guess that's the best way to say it, because people are allowed to use their property, and if the variance is the only way that they can get that, then the Board of Adjustment generally should favorably consider a variance request. This has happened once before in the city. For however it happened, there was a lot in the city that was an undersized single lot. It was 50 by 100 or 120 or whatever it was, and it needed to have 75 foot of frontage on the property. And the Board of Adjustment denied it, and the circuit court reversed them because the person has a right, even though because of the configurations of the property, and the only thing they were going to put on it was a single-family residence, a person has to be able to build on that lot, a single-family residence, because that's the appropriate zoning for it. Same concept would apply here. The Board of Adjustment, needs to take that into account in the future if that issue arises. They just can't willy-nilly say, we're not going to let you do that. If there are circumstances that the setback's the only issue about it, then they probably should very favorably consider it. But again, I can't sit here and say what a Board of Adjustment's going to do because it's a quasi-judicial body. But I'm also trying to explain there is law out there that basically says if the only way you can use your property is to get the minimum variance that's required, then the board's basically under an obligation to give that. But again, it depends on what the circumstances are.
All right.
I think what we're trying to address is that, when we're looking at variances that are pushing the structures closer to the ocean, that the variances are given for that reason, for minimum needs, not because people want a bigger house and they can't get that big, huge house on the property that's shrinking because of the ocean encroaching on their property. So that's our concern, and so that's why it was written in this manner.
So, and that brings me back to what I was going to ask Jim. I mean, if we're looking at granting a variance for a specific reason, why would we let them build 3 feet above the level if that situation occurred? We're trying to get them up. So if we're granting the variance and we're saying, you need to put this up 10 feet, I mean, I look at this as protecting their home. Why would we allow them, I mean, if it had been damaged to that extent, why would we not want them up?
Well, that's what I need to speak with Mr. Ruppinger about.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that, if council is predisposed to do so, that they adopt this on first reading, and then the issues that were raised, I can speak with Mr. Ruppinger about, or any other issues with staff about things that may come up. But again, Mark withdrew it already, but I was just going to say, I don't want to put in new issues that aren't already there.
Mm-hmm. And the garage is a separate issue.
Correct.
And we'll have the staff
look
knows our
at
feeling
that.
about looking at that.
Right.
Correct? Rochelle?
But I can see the point of some of the other issues that they brought up.
Just for clarification purposes, and yes, I think that the garage thing, I thought we were going to do separately, so that kind of confused me.
Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. The garage thing, the motion kind of confused me because I thought we were going to do that separately, so thank you for clearing that up. In terms of the requirement for 10 feet, that is only when a variance is granted to come closer than 15 feet on a new or replacement structure. It's not on a repair or modification or a minor reconstruction. It's only on a new or replacement, and that's when that 10 feet would come into play. So I just wanted to clarify that. In terms of the fences, the fence language in here, it also went to the P&Z board. That supersedes the other language in the code. And it was specifically designed to supersede that language in the code to eliminate those kind of materials on the beach. So, I mean, but it comes down to a policy.
Thank you.
Should that be clarified somewhere in there? So
That language, we do need to clarify a little bit.
We can do
yeah, I mean, that should be in there stating that this supersedes, so that it's not any ambiguities that people are going to look at.
So is our intent that we don't want any PVC fencing on the beach anymore?
Let me
I'm
clarify
confused.
this from my understanding.
Not the chain link PVC.
Okay, but like the white slat, like that we see, like that most people have, that's okay?
This
Okay.
is primarily written for the sand fences,
No, the sand fence only came in terms of the opacity.
Okay. Further questions? Hearing none. Lenore?
Councilman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
No.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. And we'll come back to the second reading. Jim, you'll have clarification on that? Okay, so it takes 2 readings. Great. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 11, discussion take action on resolution 1008. Jim?
Resolution number 1008, a resolution of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, authorizing a loan in a principal amount not exceeding $500,000 to finance qualified expenses related to natural disasters, including hurricanes and other emergencies of the city, and to pay the cost of such loan, approving the form of a taxable revolving line of credit note and a revolving credit agreement, delegating to certain officials of the city to take certain actions and to execute any documents and take any actions required in connection with the issuance of said loan, providing other details with respect thereto, and providing an effective date. That's the reading of resolution number 1008.
Okay. Courtney, I know you and I have talked about this. So basically what we're doing is buying an insurance policy here until we get our reserves built up to a dollar figure that we're comfortable, correct? So that, at which point, then this goes away. We just don't, we're not tied in any way to it. If we stop making that $9,000 or however that payment's broken up, then we just don't have that line of credit anymore.
This only is structured, we pay $9,000, and it completely goes away in January of 2020.
Correct. Okay. So we're buying an insurance policy
Correct.
until we build it. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 1008.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro.
Second.
Second by Councilman Osmer. Any further discussion from council? No. Hearing none, open for public comment on agenda item 11. Hearing none, back to council. Hearing no further. Lenore?
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 12, which is the November 7th meeting. Again, we have Veterans Day. Steve, you'll take care of that. Thank you. And we'll have any additions to it, please see Courtney. Moving on to, any other questions on? Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 13, the approval of minutes.
Make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes of October 3rd, the other special meeting of October 3rd, and the third workshop meeting of October 3rd, and the regular council meetings as submitted on October 3rd.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, a second by Councilman Osmer. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none. Lenore?
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes. Motion passed. Minutes accepted. Any further business before council? Hearing none, thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. Meeting's adjourned.